Hi, welcome to week 12 of your EDU 131 class. This week we're going to be reading the chapter It Takes a Village, chapter 12. And in this chapter we're going to talk a little bit more about the community involvement in our classrooms as well as in the children's lives, and how these multiple influences from the community can also impact a child and a family's life. And depending on where they live or where they've come from to live in this area, it can be a big change. I know for my husband and I, we moved here to Johnston County from New Hanover County, which is the beach and very humid, and you know what I'm talking about. Well, anyway, we moved from that area to this area, and it was a little bit of a culture change because we were used to, 5 seconds we could be somewhere. Well, not with the Wilmington traffic now, but we could be somewhere pretty quickly. Where now, living in Johnston County, it takes us 30 minutes to get somewhere. So, and it's all within the same county because it's such a large geographic area. So if you think about your parents who might be transitioning to this area, or possibly even been here all of their life. I've met students who have never been out of Johnston County. I mean, they've never been to the museums in Raleigh or visited the beach, those kind of things. Those are rare, but I have met some students who've experienced that. So keeping that in mind as you're working with these families, the experiences that they've had. Also want to kind of give you a disclaimer as we move forward. And as I mentioned, our very first week of class, when you did your survey for us for this class, one of the biggest things that we're going to talk about in this class is the variances of families, the diversities of families. And that can also mean the circumstances that have impacted them. So when we're looking at the community as well, we're going to be talking about some of those community resources that are available to help if there is some kind of trauma or some kind of trigger in a family's life, or some kind of circumstance that they might be experiencing where we might need to step up and help, or at least give them some resources to be able to get the help that they need. Just like here on JCC's campus, I know several of you have had some life experiences, as have I, over this past semester, and we're only 12 weeks in. But myself, for instance, I don't know that mine was traumatic. My husband and I sold our home, and we thought we were going to move into a fully furnished RV to be able to travel during spring break, fall break, summer break, that kind of thing, a little bit more, and visit some family and friends across the country. That fell through at the last minute. Our house was, we were signing on our closing on the house, and we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to be homeless. So that reality kind of sat in, and with some of the pressures that I had at work to get some things accomplished here at work. I don't know, many of you know that we are an accredited program and we have to write a self-study every 7 years. So we were in the middle of that. So, and then in the middle of that, my father-in-law passed away. And my husband and my father-in-law were very close. In fact, I would say that I'm very close to him. He was more of a father to me sometimes than my own father is. But it was one of those things where everything seemed to happen right here at the same time. And so for us, and that's why I apologize profusely for not being able to grade everything as quickly as I had there at the beginning. I am catching up, and hopefully we'll have it all caught up for you by next week. Life happens, and I recognize that, and it seems like when it happens, it all happens at the same time. So I recognize that, and what I want you to recognize is that the same thing happens to our families and the children. And as much as we try to protect the children from that, sometimes that secondary trauma or the stress that their families are feeling, like, I told you all know from probably some of the Zoom meetings or some of the videos that I've done, I have a puppy, and he's 7 years old, but some of this stress that I've been under has affected him to the point where he won't leave my side when I'm at home. He is with me if I'm sitting up in my office, or if I am, sitting out on the back patio. I mean, he's right there with me because he wants to make sure I'm okay, which is great. I love that. However, if we think about children, they're the same way. They're going to want to make sure their families, their parents are okay and that they're safe. So all of that secondary trauma that family might be facing that they're not necessarily sharing with the child because they don't want to upset them, they still feel it. So keeping that in mind as you're working with children, and recognizing that even when life circumstances happen, a lot of times we don't share that. many of you probably had no idea what was going on with me and my personal life. And just like I don't know what's going on with you in your personal life unless you've sent me an email or you've called me and you've shared, I've got this going on, I've got that going on. So that we are able to work with you. But that's one of the things that we need to recognize about this particular chapter moving forward, is recognizing that sometimes those unforeseen circumstances happen in a family's life that we can not necessarily control or help or even provide resources for. But there are some things that we can, and letting them know and having that open communication and that open door is really, really important. Secondly, I want to give you the disclaimer that as we go through some of these things, and many of you already did both of the webinars for the recognizing child abuse or recognizing maltreatment of children, and there, you had one due, and then there's another one. I think it's due next week, or maybe this week. But there's another one, and it's a 2-hour one, so it's a little longer, but that's the one that's required if you work in a child care program, so you'll want to keep that certificate. But it is a really good, if you've already done it for your child care program that you work for, it's really good to go back and get that refresher and to watch it again. But I will give you the caveat, if you yourself or of a good friend or someone in your life who's experienced that traumatic event, it might trigger some feelings for you. And I want you to go through it with the lens of a teacher. If you're a teacher, you're going to have to deal with this. I dealt with abuse when I was younger, and sometimes these child abuse sessions that I had to sit in on to learn more about my job were painful. So when you're thinking about all of that, recognize that here on campus, we have what we call accessibility services. And it's not just for people with a disability. It is for everybody, and they have a lot of great resources that they can share with you. The person who's head of that, his name is Bruce Pomeroy. So if you experience any kind of triggers or traumas from anything that we're going to discuss from here on out, or even before, please reach out to that department at JCC, because they can connect you with some resources, even some free counseling, a couple of free counseling sessions, if that's what it takes to get you through this. Because being a teacher, you need to recognize that about yourself, that you may need that support and that help, but you also need to recognize that your families and your children may be experiencing those same things. So I want you to get the resources that you need to be able to learn more about providing resources for others, because self-care is important. And in this class, we talked about that from week 1, but there is a disclaimer in this week so that you can read that. So please make sure that you're looking at that. I want to make sure that all of you are safe and sound. Even just so you know, if you go to work in a school or a child care program, the physical form that your doctor has to sign off on has to say that you're mentally and physically capable of working with children. That means that you know how to do self-care. And that's one of those things that a lot of us in this type of profession, in the health professions, a lot of times we don't think about self-care. We're just worried about caring for everybody else. So really consider that. And that's why this video is so long, because I want you to really consider your own self-care, but not at the risk of not doing your assignments, of course, but please make sure that you're reaching out and getting the help that you need if you need it. And that you are also, if you need to talk to me or need to reach out to me, shoot me an email, let me know. We'll set up an appointment, we can talk. As we move forward, we're going to be talking about some more sensitive subjects, and some trauma-informed care is going to be embedded in some of our pieces. If you've been working ahead, you'll want to go back and look at when we get to that section, because I'm adding new material that's still been developed by our North Carolina Community College system, as we're working on with Duke mental health, trying to embed some of these in our classes. So please go back and look at, starting with week 12, and see if you've missed anything if you're working ahead, because I know a couple of you are working ahead because you've got some things going on, at the end of the semester. So anyway, I hope you're having a great week. I'm sorry this is such a long video. Hopefully it will post and you'll be able to view it and get all this information information, but it is really important to me that you take care of you and that we get you through this class successfully without causing any more trauma. Other than, of course, having to do homework and getting feedback from that homework. But we want to make sure that you get the supports that you need here on campus. So accessibility services, the information is in your Blackboard site under the Start Here tab. So if you need to go back and look at that, please do. Have a great week. Bye.